Anthony reminded me with one of his questions that Cyprus too was a French colony for a short period of time, about 3 centuries. But unfortunately, it was a long time ago. It was between the 11th and the 15th century, so it had very little impact on my language training. Cyprus was a colony of almost every other country in the world, so kind of getting used to it. So introduction to the Cypriot case, a lot of commonalities with the case of Northern Ireland and New Caledonia. I'm going to try to introduce you to the Cypriot history through 3 maps that demonstrate some of the issues we're going to be discussing together. This is how Cyprus used to look like in the 1960s when it became an independent country from the British. With the red, you have the Turkish Cypriots. With the blue, you have the Greek Cypriot community. The Greek Cypriot community used to be the majority, about 80%. The Turkish Cypriot community used to be about 20%. Preceding independence, the Greek Cypriots thought that it would be fair that they would unite with Greece. They were the majority of the population. They fought with the British in World War II. Therefore, Cyprus should go to Greece. For the Turkish Cypriots, that was not acceptable. Cyprus should remain British, and if it becomes, the status changes, a portion of the island should go to Turkey. So there should be a division of the island. So the 2 communities in the period preceding independence, they had very different visions. And often power sharing is a compromise between 2 different visions. In the 1960s, there is an independent Republic of Cyprus, and the proposed agreement is for power sharing. But the difference to Northern Ireland and New Caledonia is that this power sharing happens in a sovereign country, a country that is now independent. There is no UN, so there is no mechanism. There is no third country who guarantees the agreement as part of its own territory. And it is a presidential power sharing. Big difference. We know that presidential systems are problematic. Many of you who are political scientists have read the relevant literature. It's even more problematic when it comes to power sharing. You had one leader, the Greek Cypriot leader, that is elected only by Greek Cypriots, and the Turkish Cypriot vice president, who is elected only by Turkish Cypriots. And guess what? They were fighting with each other because they had 2 different constituencies, unlike what is proposed in other cases. So if you think that your model is problematic, look at what happened in Cyprus in 1960s. It collapsed within 3 years. There was conflict. In my second map, there was a Turkish invasion following a Greek coup that divided the island. So Turkish Cypriots got what they wanted. They wanted a northern part of the island. In fact, the Turkish army occupied about 36% of the territory, which meant that it was more territory for the Turkish Cypriot. So the Turkish Cypriot won on the territorial side, but the Greek Cypriots had the control of the republic. They didn't have to deal with the Turkish Cypriots anymore. There was no power sharing because the Turkish Cypriots were in the north. And guess what? The international community recognized only the Greek Cypriots. So when the Greek Cypriot went to join the EU, they represent the whole island. When they go to the United Nations, they represent the whole island. They said the Turkish Cypriots don't exist. They are flagged. Their institutions are illegal. They're illegal institutions in the north. So Turkish Cypriots got more territory, and the Greek Cypriots got the recognition of the state. The Republic of Cyprus is effectively controlled by the Greek Cypriot community. So following this division in 1974, there were peace plans. There was an agreement by the 2 sides that they should negotiate on the principles of a bizonal bicommunal federation and power sharing. And since then, every UN Secretary General has proposed a peace plan. So we have this amazing, for our project, we have this amazing database of proposals by every single mediator in the past 50 years. And they all rejected, sometimes by the Greek Cypriots, sometimes by the Turkish Cypriots, and sometimes by both. But essentially, what they were proposing is a comprehensive peace plan. The longest one happened in 2004. It was 10,000 pages long. So when they decided that this would go to a referendum, they had to, it couldn't fit into a normal UN card. They had to bring in a special card to fit it in. But the basic, in a nutshell, what this plan said is that these territories in the north will return to the Greek Cypriots. The Greek Cypriots will get a little bit more territory, and to allow for displaced persons, displaced Greek Cypriots, to go back. And the Turkish Cypriots will get power sharing. There will be a division of power, and it was very similar to the New Caledonian arrangement. I see here there was some kind of parallel thinking with Northern Ireland, Belgium, the mediators going from one country to another. We're going to try to uncover some of those linkages and who was advising who in those peace plans. Now, that was in a nutshell what this is the negotiations. As you probably understand, there are often trade-offs in negotiations. We give you some territory, you give us power sharing, we agree on federalism. This is what we're going to do with security. This is the dimensions that we're going to be looking in our surveys. How do people prioritize those elements, and whether there can be zones of possible agreement. So in conclusion, there are three ways to describe the Cyprus problem that you should remember when you leave this room. Like in New Caledonia, also Malta, other islands are called the unsinkable aircraft carriers. These are islands that are very important strategically. When you're in a situation like this, it's very hard to talk about citizen preferences, because it's a much larger strategic picture that one should take into consideration. We're not naive in the project. We understand the bigger global security scene, but often thinking that it is not possible to resolve a conflict because the outsiders have all these malign interests might be also problematic. In fact, my own reading of the case of Cyprus is that this fluctuates across time. Sometimes they might actually have an interest to resolve the conflict because they want to preserve their own interests. Think of the British bases in Cyprus. Think of the importance of the Mediterranean right now as the new provider for oil and gas for Europe, right? So it's not just an unsinkable carrier, it's a pipeline of life for Europe right now, potential pipeline for life. So there is a lot of interest right there, and often what is missing is matching what is happening in the global level with what happened in the citizen level. And this is what the project is essentially about, trying to combine these different levels of analysis. The other term you might want to remember about Cyprus is what a Swedish diplomat called a diplomat's graveyard. This is because every diplomat who tried to solve the Cyprus problem has failed so far. And this creates obviously self-fulfilling prophecy. Every time we have a peacemaker coming to propose something after 50 years, it makes it more difficult. At the same time, Cyprus has a very vibrant peace movement. The reason that after 50 years of failing, you have people insisting for peace demonstrates, and going to the negotiations demonstrates there is a public will for settlement from the perspective of citizens. So the reverse, if you wish, the counter argument to that is that there were all these opportunities in the past that we have missed. But this is a lost opportunity paradigm, the fact that we could have solved the problem long time ago, but we have missed the opportunity. And what drives this and what provides evidence to some of these issues is that even though Cyprus has been described as the diploma graveyard, some of the surveys show that regardless of the, despite the failures of the past few years, despite the fact that in the Eastern Mediterranean have been facing much more worsening climate between Greece and Turkey. They were very close to war the past few years with their own conflicts. We have seen an increase support for the bizonal, bicommunal federations. For instance, in the Greek Cypriot side, that was something in the range of 76%. So some of our surveys, just on one example, are used to counter the C thesis that the Cyprus problem is unresolvable. They give people hope that there is public support. This is the first starting point, that we can demonstrate through public opinion surveys, through the inclusion of the citizens, that there is still demand for a peace settlement. And then we can start from there to look at different institutions. What kind of arrangements? Alison described different micro-institutional arrangements. What kind of arrangements are more likely to increase that level of support? So 76% on the Greek Cypriot side. Also, what is very important here, and we're trying to replicate in New Caledonia, is a sequencing across time. Sometimes you get a figure. 50% of the people in New Caledonia might want to have a new agreement. But how do you know, or support the Nouvelle Accord, but how do you know that this is good or bad? You want to have recurring data for a long period of time. If it's 50% today, we want to know whether it was 70% 2 years ago or was 30%. If it's increasing, that's a good tendency. If it's decreasing, we're doing something wrong. So this is a type of, again, recurring trends that we would like to introduce in the study of the problem here. This is on the Turkish Cypriot side, 70% support. So how do we turn these public feelings, these public references to peace settlements will be critical in all cases in this project, identifying zones of agreement, identifying the possibilities for reaching settlement across communities who have been in conflict. Thank you very much.